If you've been wanting to play Chinese chess on Tiantian Xiangqi, but you've been confused by the chessboard and all of the buttons and settings, if you've ever wondered, what does this button do? Or this one? Or if you've been playing in a match and you suddenly heard a voice from the other player and you wondered, how did they do that? Well, don't worry, I figured it all out and I'm here to share that with you. So the first thing you need to know is how to offer a draw, resign, or otherwise leave the game. And to do that, hit the button on the lower left-hand corner. And here you'll see the first option is to exit the game. And this is without offering a draw. This is without resigning. You will be given an "Are you sure?" message. Typically, it would be advised not to do so because that forces the other player to wait until your time runs out and you automatically lose the game. Now, Tiantian Xiangqi has been cracking down on what they call malicious disconnection, and a lot of users complain about other players who do this, who exit the game, leaving the other player to just wait while the clock runs down. I believe Tiantian Xiangqi's software actually looks out for that and looks out for patterns of malicious disconnection. And if you get reported for doing that, you can lose points on your social credit score and even get banned temporarily or permanently for repeated violations. So don't do that. Next up, if you need to resign and admit defeat, you can wave your white flag of defeat. Now, resignation is not possible in the early part of the game. So you can't just make a few moves and then decide that you want to resign and keep your credit score intact. So I'm going to make a few moves on this game and we'll count exactly how many moves are needed before you are offered the option to resign. So I've made about 6 moves and we can see now that the option to resign has been offered. Next up is the option to offer a draw, and you can only do this when it is your turn. And you can tell it's your turn if your clock is the one that's running down, then you're given the option to offer a draw. And this will show a pop-up message on the other player's screen asking if they want to accept the draw offer. So I'll have my opponent offer a draw just so you can see what that message looks like. And there's the draw offer. If I want to decline it, I'll hit the button on the left. Next up is the regret or undo button. And this allows you to ask your opponent if you can undo your last move if you made a particularly foolish one and realized it right away. So let me move my chariot here. And this is a bad move because their cannon can come and attack my chariot. Now, if I regret that move, I can use that regret button and request an undo. And this displays a pop-up message for the other user. So let me go ahead and do that. They're going to allow it and let me undo that. Now, in my experience, I haven't found very many players, especially in the chess performance evaluation field, to accept undos. Most people will gladly gobble up a blunder, but the option's there in case you find it useful. And it should also be pointed out that you're only allowed 3 undo requests in a single game. If an opponent requests an undo, like they just move their chariot here where my pawn can snag it, and they send an undo request, here's what that looks like on your screen. You can confirm it to allow them to undo it, or you can decline it. In this case, I'll decline, and I will gobble up that free chariot. Now let's look at some of the settings that allow you to customize your gameplay experience. And to find those settings, navigate again to the lower left-hand corner and click the settings button. So the first setting is whether you want to have the background music turned on or off. I typically have this on. I personally like the ambiance and experience that it provides. For the purposes of making this video, though, I have it turned off. There are also various sound effects associated with moving pieces on the board and capturing other pieces, and you can turn those off if you like. I usually like to have those on. The next 2 settings allow you to receive messages from the other player or play the other party's voice. So let me show you how those work. So during the game, you can communicate with other players using this chat icon at the bottom. First off, you see a bunch of emojis, and what these do is they display an emoji in your profile picture. So I'm going to have my opponent send one so you can see what that looks like. Oh, it looks like they made a bad move. And now they're angry. And if I want to respond with my own emoji, I can pick one here. There are also some special emojis that you can send to the other player. If you want to send a message to another player, you can do so in this chat box here. So let's go ahead and say ni hao. And that sent a message. And it looks like they responded back with hey. You can see the chat history during the game with the chat history button right here. Now for my account, I have a VIP subscription, so the little VIP badge shows up here. Also, you might be wondering, why do I have this red name tag? And that was an exclusive VIP marketplace item that I was able to buy with my VIP member points. Really quick, I'll show you how to get that. So if you're a VIP member, you can navigate to the VIP membership section and then open up the marketplace. And currently there are two options for these name tags. You can get a purple one or a red one. The purple one currently costs 3,000 member points. But in any case, that's what that is, and that's where you can find it. While I'm at it, I should also point out that my opponent and I had different chat bubbles. And that's because that's something you can also personalize. So let me show you how you can do that. From the home page, navigate to the Discover tab, and then click on your inventory or your backpack. On the far right, you'll see your themes and customizations. And then the chat bubbles are this middle button here. So you can see the default one here and then the one that I have. Now, the last thing to note with the chat system is that you can send pre-formed messages. So if you go to type a message, you'll see all of these pre-written ones that you can send. I'll just show you the translation of some of them. Are you still there? Please play chess as soon as possible. So if your opponent is taking a long time in playing their move and you're growing impatient, you can send this message as a reminder to hurry up and please play a move. You can ask if they want to play another game with you. If you're taking a long time and someone says, are you still there? Please play chess as soon as possible. If you want to let them know that you're still thinking about the move, you haven't exited the game, you can respond with, please wait a moment, let me think about it some more. Something that's fun about these pre-formed messages is that some of them have really cool sound effects that go with them. So let me show one to you. So I'm going to send this message right here.
棋逢对手，将遇良才，痛快，痛快。
Now, both players hear that message unless, if we go back to settings, you turn off the receive messages settings. So let's go back to settings. And then if for some reason you don't want your game interrupted by another player's voice message coming through, you can always toggle off receive messages from the opponent during the game. That disables all communication from the other player. You won't receive the pop-up bubbles or the sound associated with some of those preformed messages. And if you go into the chat, you'll only see things that you sent, but nothing from the other player. So in this case, my opponent has sent me a message, but I don't see anything here. Now, the next two settings pertain to voice packs, and you won't run into this too much, so I'll just cover this really quick. But essentially, this first option has to do with in-game move narration. So when you're playing a game, you'll hear various narrated sound effects like this. You can find the voice packs for this narration by navigating to the Discover tab, and back to your inventory, and then click on this music icon. So we see this currently selected voice pack is the one that we just heard.
将军，
And occasionally there are other voice packs offered as well.
来了，老弟，必须吃啊！将军，哎呦我去，刺激！
Now, this setting says automatically play the other party's voice. And the idea behind this is that players can have their own unique, customized character with their own voice. And if you keep this toggled on, if the other player has a different voice pack than you do, when their pieces capture or put you in check, then you'll hear their character's voice speak. So here's an example of that in action.
吃，
吃光光，我将
吃，
So toggling this off just makes all the voice sound effects come from your own voice pack. The next option in the settings has to do with personalized in-game voice broadcasts from the other party. So if we go back to the voice pack section of our inventory and click on the right-hand button, we'll see all these personalized greetings. Now, periodically, Tiantian Xiangqi offers promotional voice greetings, and most of these things are like Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, etc. If you don't want to hear that from the other player, just toggle this off. The next setting is Show Move Tips, and this is a great option to have toggled on as a beginner because it shows the legal moves for your pieces. For example, selecting my cannon shows me that I can move it left, right, back one space, or that another legal move is to capture.
吃，
If I turn that setting off, then clicking on pieces does not show where the valid moves are. The next option is to show checkerboard ticks. And toggling this on puts the file numbers for your chessboard on the screen. This is a great option if you're writing down notation, or if you're a beginner and trying to learn the file numbers. I have noticed that some specialized chessboard themes, like this one that I have here, do not have the chessboard ticks. Whether you have it turned on or off, you won't see anything there. So if you want to use those chessboard ticks, the best option is to use the default board theme. The next two options have to do with enabling or disabling animations. So you can show the capture or check animation or the opening and final strike animation. And we've already seen a few of these in this video, so I'll just show a few animations from some chess themes. So here's the one that I currently have loaded up. Here's another board with some different animations. And another one. This one's pretty cool. So if you find those animations distracting in any way, you can turn them off in the settings. The next option is the checkerboard marking function. And if you have this turned on, you can draw arrows and highlight spaces and pieces on the board. Let's say you're explaining your strategy to someone else, or just going through the moves in your head. So for example, I can show that this cannon is targeting this pawn up here. Maybe I'm thinking about getting my horse up here to target this pawn and this cannon. The arrows are also not restricted to only legal moves, so you can draw an arrow wherever you want. If you make a mistake and want to delete an arrow, you can double tap on the number associated with that arrow and it will disappear. Lastly, the marking function allows you to highlight pieces. So I can highlight this pawn, I can highlight spaces as well, and you do that just by double tapping. You can also get rid of those highlights by double tapping on it again. This might be a great time to show the deduction feature, which is this button right here. If you're in a match with another player, you can click the deduction button to bring up a chessboard that you can mess around with and play out different scenarios that you might be thinking about. So maybe I think my opponent is going to push their horse, and maybe I want to bring my cannon over here. So you can use this feature to play through a scenario in your head while the game is actively running. And you see down here at the bottom is how much time you have left on your move. And if it gets down to where you only have 10 seconds left on your move, then this simulation will automatically exit out to the main game, which you can get back to here. In this deduction function, you can create a whole scenario and play it out, practice it, figure out exactly what you think your opponent is going to do and how you might want to respond. So I let the clock run down to the last seconds and it automatically kicked me out, forcing me to make my move.
Sure.
While we're on the topic of planning out your moves, I should show you the analysis option that you have while playing a game. Now, Tiantian Xiangqi has a lot of really in-depth analysis features, but of course you can't use those inside of an actual match because that would be cheating. So the only thing that's offered is a calculation of your advantage or disadvantage. And to get that during a match, you can click on the analysis button down here. And that brings up this calculation bar. And what this shows is that currently black has an advantage. Black has a larger percentage of the score bar. My points are currently 304. I like using this feature as a beginner because it helps me be mindful of the game as I'm progressing. If I make a move and I see my score drop dramatically, or if my opponent makes a move and I see my score drop dramatically, then I'm going to pay extra attention to try and figure out what was it about that move that was bad, or what was it about their move that was so good. Now, the points are calculated on a scale from 0 to 3,000, where 0 means both players are equal, and 3,000 is basically checkmate. So if you're within just a move or two of checkmating your opponent, you should see your score up in the 2,000 range, close to that 3,000 checkmate. These numbers on the right just give some details about the engine that's doing the calculation itself. Like it's using a depth of 20 moves, breadth of about 800,000, and a speed of about 300,000, whatever that means. Now, as a VIP member, I don't have any restrictions on using this analysis feature within games, and I can use it in every single game if I want. But if you don't have a VIP membership, then you have to use analysis cards to make this happen. So let me switch over to my wife's account, which does not have a VIP membership, just to show you what that looks like. So we're logged into my wife's account, and you can see at the bottom here, there's a red 9. And what that means is we have 9 analysis cards remaining. So I'll show you where you can find those. Head back over to your inventory. And then this green card here is used for analysis. And what this says is that each time you use the in-game analysis, it consumes 1 card. So if we click the analysis button, then we get our real-time in-game score at the top, and our remaining analysis cards decreases to 8. And sure enough, back in the inventory, we only have 8 left. If you don't want any limitations on in-game analysis, then you might consider checking out the VIP membership. And I have a whole set of videos walking you through the features of that and how to set it up. There's quite a few steps, but once you figure it out and get it set up, it's actually pretty straightforward. Now, all of that was a big detour from talking about the checkerboard marking function. Next up is the prioritize using your own outfit during the match. And the informational note here says, once the game begins, you will be given priority to use your own board/pieces. Now, the way this works is that all of your customizations have different point values. And the point values from all of your equipment is added together to produce a total cosmetic value. So for example, my chessboard has a cosmetic value of 200. You can get chess pieces that have cosmetic value of 300, for example. Frames, timers, chat bubbles, name tags, and badges can all have point values associated with them. Now you might be wondering, how is my score only 120 when my chessboard has a cosmetic value of 200? And that's because only permanent items are included in the calculation of your cosmetic value. In my case, I only have 3 days left on this chessboard before I lose it. So its value is not included in the total. But I do have a permanent frame that's worth 30, a timer that's worth 20, my chat bubbles are also permanent and worth 20, and that VIP name tag is worth 50. So what does that have to do with the prioritize using your own outfit during the match setting? And the way this works is that when you start a game, the chess theme that you actually see is going to default to the player that has the higher cosmetic value. So let me show you how that works. So I've logged into my wife's account and we're going to start a friend match between our two accounts. And before we start, you can see that her theme is different from my theme. So let's start our match. Now this opening animation shows essentially a battle between our two themes, and the theme with the higher cosmetic value won out. So even though we're logged into her account, because I have a cosmetic score of 120 and she has a cosmetic score of 0, the theme that is being displayed in her match is the same as my theme. If you don't want to see other players' themes during your matches, you can toggle that prioritize your own outfit during the game option on. Speaking of chessboards, themes, and different pieces, that's what these last two settings are. These are just shortcuts that bring up the chessboards and the chess pieces that you can choose from. Now, you cannot change your theme during a match, so this can only be done before a match has started. The only exception is if you're playing a bot, then you can certainly go and change your chessboard or chess pieces in the middle of the game. The bot doesn't care. So that covers all of the settings and menu options, and we just have a couple more items left to look at before we've wrapped up our exploration of all the in-game playing features. So let's take a quick look at our profiles here. First off, next to our username is our ranking. My ranking is student 2-3, and I'm going to make a whole video that walks through exactly how the rankings work. If you look at your timer, you'll see the total playing time that you have for your game here, as well as a countdown timer limiting how long you spend on any single move. If you click on your profile, you'll see what is publicly available to other users who may play with you or come across your profile. And what this shows is a link to your recent games, so you or other users can look at the games that you've played. Also, if you click on your ranking, you'll see detailed definitions for the scores associated with each level. Down here near the bottom, you'll see how many games you have played total. So on this account, I've played a total of 134 games with an average win rate of 47%. Over here on the right, you can see the milestone badges that you've earned, and I have a separate video about those. The amount of in-app currency that you have, and again, I have another video that covers all of that. Also shown here is your social credit score. And if this drops below 100, maybe you got reported for malicious disconnection, as I talked about earlier, then some aspects of your account can be suspended or you can even be banned. Now, not only can you look at your profile, but you can look at your opponent's profile and see all of their information too if you're curious. If you don't want all this information publicly visible to other users of Tiantian Xiangqi, there are privacy settings that you can use to hide these. So I'll show you what that looks like and how to get to those. So what I have here is a game currently in progress, and I am a spectator. So if I click on the first opponent, then I can see their profile and all their information. I can look at past game history. But if I look at the second opponent, we see that all of their information is hidden and kept private. And if we click on their game history, then we'll see an error message that says that we do not have permission to view their game history. So if you want to restrict your privacy settings, you can go to your profile, go to settings, and then it's this third option down that has all of the privacy settings. And it's here where you can change whether you want your recent games or chess achievements and so forth to be viewable by everyone, only visible to friends, or to deny viewing to anyone. So I think that covers just about every button, option, and setting that you can possibly touch from within the chess playing interface itself. Now, as a non-Chinese speaker, it took me a couple months of trial and error to figure out all the features. It took me about 30 hours of recording and editing to put this video together. So hopefully this was helpful for you to skip some of that blood, sweat, and tears that's needed to navigate the interface and understand all of the features. And if you find it helpful, give a like and subscribe, and I'll be posting more videos going through all the other features of Tiantian Xiangqi. See you then.